Welcome to the Shoulder Sandwich broadcast. We're so happy you are here. Happy, happy, dum, dum, happy, happy, dum.
Hello everyone and welcome to a preview of the very first Shoulder Sandwich broadcast from Monday, September 25th, 2023. I'm John, and if you're wondering why I have a sandwich on my shoulder, fair question, but can you tell me why you don't? First things first, I hope my SAT math tutoring students maximize their potential on the most recent SAT given the last Saturday in August. The next one is scheduled for October 7th, and I look forward to helping anyone who needs it. In case you've ever wondered if teaching math and sporting a shoulder sandwich could be compatible, I'm living proof that they can. And I hate to break it to you, but I know many teachers I wouldn't exactly call normal. They're just pretty good at hiding their harmless peculiarity during work hours. Hey, teachers are people too, right? Here's what you can expect from upcoming Shoulder Sandwich broadcasts, currently scheduled to be released each Monday. I'll be discussing my all-time favorite movies in a segment I call Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie, and this will also be released as a standalone podcast. No pressure. Today's selection is 1988's The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. It's the same old story. Boy finds girl, boy loses girl, girl finds boy, boy forgets girl, boy remembers girl, girl dies in a tragic blimp accident over the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. Remember that quote, Schnooky Lumps? I sure hope so, or else you'd better make time to watch the movie soon, Butterwings. And in case you need time to prepare for the next Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie, in the next episode I will be analyzing 2008's Taken. I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you. Good luck. There will also be a Kevin Bacon movie game with one question each that I consider easy, medium, and difficult. And if you don't know how to play the game, I will explain it with an example, all the while silently wondering what rock you've been living under all these years. And let me warn you, this game can be a bit addictive. Don't be surprised if pretty soon you don't remember what life was like before the Kevin Bacon movie game. I'll also be choosing a photo to compete in an awkward band pics competition. Once the level of competition starts to thin out, not unlike the hair of the bands I grew up with, we will have a bracket-style tournament to crown the ultimate awkward band photo. This will occur after either 8 or 16 selections are made to keep things simple. I personally find the genre of hair metal to be a rich source of quality contestants, and today I will reveal the photo that I've chosen of the band Cinderella. I'll also be reviewing a product that I have personally used and rated awesome, very good, good, decent, or nope. If the product is declared awesome or very good, I'll also include a link to my website for an opportunity to purchase that product. Buying a product using my link is an example of affiliate marketing, and I would get a small percentage of each purchase price. You might be wondering, hey, isn't that a potential conflict of interest? To which I say, absolutely! But I think you'll find over time that my reviews can be trusted, and I'll also remind you of the potential conflict of interest on my website using this wildly clever coin icon. Today's review is Fresh Breath Chewing Gum by TheraBreath. Last but not least, I will be selecting one of the songs for inclusion on my 10-song Desert Island playlist, as well as providing an explanation for each choice. Today's pick is a classic rock song by a band that's been around for half a century, with their song being covered by a band that's a bit more contemporary, although it would be hard for the covering band to be less contemporary. So that's the Shoulder Sandwich broadcast preview from Monday, September 25th, 2023. I hope you enjoy the full-length segments, and I would love to read the comments and suggestions, positive or negative, that you send to me at shouldersandwich@gmail.com. Yes, believe it or not, that email address was available. Okay, Johnny tired, Johnny hungry. It's finally time to remove the sandwich from its majestic perch and help it fulfill its destiny. Today's selection is a ham, cheese, salami, and capicola sandwich delivered from a local restaurant. Carpe diem et carpe de sandwicho. Hey everybody, this is John welcoming you to the very first Shoulder Sandwich broadcast dated Monday, September 25th, 2023. You may have noted that, unlike the preview, I am not currently sporting a sandwich on my shoulder. That seems a bit inconsistent, doesn't it? Are you wondering if I made a spontaneous decision to embrace normalcy? Nah. I just thought that if I wore and consumed a sandwich after every video segment, I would be over 300 pounds before I knew... What's that? Right. I would be over 400 pounds before I knew it. So I made a choice to produce this video with barren shoulders. I'm not bragging. I have nice, clean shoulders. It's just a fact. Okay, so as you may have seen in the Shoulder Sandwich broadcast preview, you can look forward to a lot of great content, if I say so myself. In fact, why delay? Let's jump right in.
Welcome to Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie.
Shoulder Sandwich on a Movie is available in video and podcast form, and it is the flagship segment of the Shoulder Sandwich broadcast. Today is September 25th, 2023. I'm John, and this is episode number 1. For now and the foreseeable future, each episode of Shoulder Sandwich on a Movie will feature a detailed analysis of one of my all-time favorite movies. And this one will focus on the 1988 comedy classic, yeah, I said it, The Naked Gun, from the Files of Police Squad. Note that I use the term analysis instead of review, since the current category is all-time favorites, so they would get great reviews from me anyway. This could certainly change in the future, but for the time being I will be keeping busy with about 2 to 3 dozen of my all-timers. Episode number 2 will focus on 2008's Taken. I will look for you, I will find you, and I will kill you. Good luck. But before we jump into the analysis, I'm going to give you 3 Kevin Bacon movie game questions. The first of which I'll try to make pretty easy, the second somewhat challenging, and the third downright tough. I will provide the questions before the movie analysis and my answers after. For those of you that don't know how to play the Kevin Bacon movie game, no problem. Get out. Now! Just kidding. My apologies. I can be a bit silly sometimes. Of course, that may be a bit redundant coming from a man who accessorizes with a shoulder sandwich. Here's an example of the Kevin Bacon movie game, either to refresh your memory or to introduce you to this very enjoyable contest. Let's say I challenge you to get from Tom Hanks to Margot Robbie in as few moves as possible. You might ponder this for a bit and come up with the fact that Tom Hanks appeared in Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, who appeared in The Wolf of Wall Street with Margot Robbie. So you're done. That would be a solution in 2 moves, since you mentioned 2 movies in your answer. Now let's get to today's games. The pretty easy version of the game is getting from Marissa Tomei to Robert De Niro in as few moves as possible. Good luck with that one. The somewhat challenging version is getting from Paul Newman to Diane Lane, also in as few moves as possible. The downright tough one, which may have revealed a slight sadistic tendency on my part, let's keep an eye on this, is to get from Elliot Gould to Sylvester Stallone in as few moves as possible. Good luck. My answers will be provided after the analysis of today's movie. If you need more time, simply pause and come back. Oh, please come back. I will also remind you about this right before I provide my answers. Promise. Today's movie is The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad. A few words about my process. Although it may be modified based upon the type of movie or a need for improvements identified by me or by listeners, this is what I'm currently thinking. I'll start off with some basic information such as release date, major cast members, box office totals, and reviews culled from well-known sources like imdb.com and rottentomatoes.com. I will then provide what I consider relevant background on the movie. For example, for Rambo: First Blood Part 2, I would mention First Blood as well as the other movies Sylvester Stallone acted in up to that point in time. I will then share any interesting personal details related to the movie's release. At least I hope you'll find them interesting. I will then break the movie into scenes and then analyze them in order. I will generally use location as a guideline in defining a scene, but this could vary if there's a montage or other situations I'm not smart enough to anticipate. For each scene, I will note key characters that are introduced, any other of my all-time favorite projects they might have been in, cameos, trivia, confusing items, references I still make to this day, as well as 2 crazy clever acronyms I simply willed into existence. When I say it's time to get petty, petty stands for Pops Explains Things to Youngsters, which is an opportunity for me to add historical context given my long ago birth year of 1968. And when I say it's time for a photo op, FOTO, stands for movie elements that are funny on their own, but the enjoyment may be enhanced by explaining how they came about. But wait, there's more. I also have 2 more acronyms that are just as clever, according to me. When I say it's time to choose a room with a view, I am choosing to reserve only 1 minute of the entire movie to be able to watch in the future. This must be 1 continuous minute, and it may be pretty obvious, or it may require a great deal of thought. For example, during the first movie analyzed, The Naked Gun, I went all Zapruder film and viewed the scenes frame by frame to maximize those 60 precious seconds. And when I say it's time to see what made the final cut, I am presenting all the noteworthy movie items that I didn't already mention. So I am sweeping them all up during 1 final cleanup time. This will also include a discussion of how strong the beginning and ending of the movie were, thoughts about the soundtrack, and anything else worth mentioning. So, what do you think? Do I put the anal in analysis or what? If you are still awake and listening, I would really appreciate you sending any comments or suggestions to me at shouldersandwich@gmail.com. Yes, I know. How lucky was I that such an awesome email address was available. My goal is to make Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie as entertaining as possible, and your input is extremely important to me. Thank you so much. This portion of Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie is brought to you by new Just for Lawn. It's the middle of the summer and the hot sun has already damaged all your nice green grass, resulting in a sad brown color. Simply comb Just for Lawn into the chromatically challenged areas and they will be restored back to a lustrous green in just 5 minutes. Just for Lawn, just like magic. Use as directed, not for sale in any area that restricts the sale of fictional products. If this product really existed, it would likely be available where finer paints are sold. Now back to the podcast. And now, without further vacuous babble, we'll start things off with some basic information.
I'm gonna break you off some basic information.
Full title: The Naked Gun, from the Files of Police Squad. Rating: PG-13. Length: 85 minutes. One-line plot summary: incompetent police detective Frank Drebin must foil an attempt to assassinate Queen Elizabeth II. Here's some box office information I had gotten from IMDb. The U.S. release date was December 2nd, 1988. The budget, $12 million. Opening weekend, $9.3 million. The gross, $78.8 million. Gross minus the budget, the difference is $66.8 million. And the gross divided by the budget, that ratio was 6.6. The average IMDb rating is 7.6 on a 10 scale. That's with 179,000 votes. And the Rotten Tomatoes critics rating is 86% based upon 58 reviews, and the Rotten Tomatoes audience score is 84% based on over 100,000 votes. Key personnel in the movie: Leslie Nielsen as Lieutenant Frank Drebin, Priscilla Presley as Jane Spencer, George Kennedy as Ed Hocken, Ricardo Montalban as Vincent Ludwig, and O.J. Simpson as Detective Nordberg. Directed by David Zucker, written by Jerry Zucker, Jim Abrahams, David Zucker, and Pat Proft. Produced by Robert K. Weiss. And that's today's basic information. Now we proceed to relevant background.
Relevant
background.
Airplane, the 1980 comedy smash and likely future candidate for shoulder sandwich and a movie, is well known for its rapid-fire servings of sight gags, puns, and slapstick. While this formula might very well spell success even with a group of unknown actors, what really made it a classic was the number of actors primarily known for serious roles prior to boarding this particular airplane. Lloyd Bridges, the father of fellow actors Jeff and Bo, has IMDb movie credits that began in 1935, and he might have previously been best known for the popular TV series Sea Hunt that ran from 1958 to 1961. Peter Graves, possibly best known for his role in the 1967 to 73 Mission Impossible TV series, has IMDb movie credits that begin in 1942 and include 1953's Stalag 17. Robert Stack, perhaps best known for the TV series Unsolved Mysteries, has IMDb movie credits that begin in 1939 and include the role of Elliot Ness in the 1953 to 63 classic TV series The Untouchables. Leslie Nielsen, who has IMDb movie credits that begin in 1956 and include 1972's The Poseidon Adventure, will of course be discussed in great detail very, very soon. And last but certainly not least on this amazing roster is Barbara Billingsley, best known for her role as sweet and charming Mrs. Cleaver in the classic 1957 to 63 TV series Leave It to Beaver. Miss Billingsley has IMDb movie credits that begin in 1945, and though I have scoured her myriad IMDb credits, I simply cannot find a pre-1980 role of hers comparable to that of the jive lady that she played so well in Airplane. From "Oh stewardess, I speak jive," through "Chump don't want the help, chump don't get the help, jive ass dude don't got no brains anyhow." Hers is perhaps the most radical and wonderful example of stunt casting among all these primarily serious actors. What I wouldn't give to have been there for those rehearsals. The brain trust behind Airplane, David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker, then leveraged their unique talents to create the TV series Police Squad, which debuted in 1982. I posted a link to purchase the complete collection on DVD on the products page at internetreststop.com, but be forewarned, I receive a small percentage of every purchase. Although it only lasted for 6 episodes, it was probably a blessing in disguise, as the demands for new puns, sight gags, and slapstick on an aggressive TV production schedule soon made it clear that a feature film was the more appropriate delivery vehicle. In another blessing in disguise, in my humble opinion, Robert Stack was the first choice for Frank Drebin, and he turned it down. Although Mr. Stack was excellent as pilot Rex Kramer in Airplane, I can't imagine a more iconic portrayal of Frank Drebin than provided by Leslie Nielsen. As a bit of postscript to this section, in researching the prior serious roles of the cast of Airplane, I watched the trailer for the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet, in which Mr. Nielsen plays Commander J.J. Adams. In viewing the trailer that lasted maybe 4 minutes, I saw what I consider influences for future science fiction projects Star Wars, Star Trek, and Lost in Space. Perhaps the credit for this iconic sci-fi trio needs to be spread out more than I originally assumed. I will watch the whole feature film soon in order to feed my newfound curiosity. This portion of Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie is brought to you by absolutely no one. And that's today's relevant background. Now we proceed to personal situation.
Hope I don't bore you with
Personal
my personal situation.
On the U.S. release date of December 2nd, 1988, I was about 6 months short of my 21st birthday and in my 4th year at Rutgers University. I would end up needing an additional semester to graduate, and I remember watching The Naked Gun on videotape during that 9th and final semester. That means I saw it sometime between September and December of 1989. Not sure why I waited up to a year to watch this comedy classic, but trust me, I made up for lost time. In the category of movies and TV, I also wanted to mention that I'm 6'9" and I portrayed a basketball player in the 1994 movie Above the Rim. I played a member of the Orange team in the tournament called The Shootout, held in Rucker Park in Harlem, New York. As a result of my 4 days there in late October and early November of 1993, I became eligible for and joined the Screen Actors Guild. Because of a subsequent merger with AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, I then became a member of SAG-AFTRA. I'm not saying this to brag, and that should be really clear when I reveal that I have spent far more in union dues than I have ever made working on projects. And just to pour a container of Morton salt into the wound, my lifetime union dues are probably a healthy multiple of my lifetime earnings. But to steer this back to movies and away from my unparalleled business acumen, I have appeared in 1994's Above the Rim, as well as a blink and you'll miss me moment in the 2020 film Worth. So please indulge me as I challenge you to play the Kevin Bacon movie game again and get from each of these movies to the Naked Gun in as few moves as possible. My answers will be provided in a short while. So, to reiterate, number 1, get from Above the Rim to the Naked Gun in as few moves as possible. Number 2, get from Worth to the Naked Gun in as few moves as possible. And that's today's personal situation. Now we proceed to running through the scenes.
Running through the scenes.
Running through the
Forever
scenes.
on the web they'll be.
The first scene took place in Beirut, and the major characters introduced were Lieutenant Frank Drebin, played by Leslie Nielsen. Much more to come on this zany icon. Mr. Papschmear, played by Ray Burke. Never missing an opportunity to elicit a laugh, this surname is clearly based upon the gynecological procedure. Head scratchers. Why was Frank in that room in Beirut? At first I wondered why Frank was in Beirut at all, until he explained to Ed that he went there to get Victoria off his mind. But that still doesn't explain his presence among the infamous world leaders, Arafat, Gaddafi, Khomeini, Amin, and Gorbachev, that were plotting against America. Now to the opening credits. Head scratchers. The studio wanted the filmmakers to come up with a new title to avoid confusion with the Police Academy franchise, with From the Files of Police Squad tacked on the end. According to director David Zucker, the Naked Gun was chosen because it, quote, promised more than the movie could possibly deliver, end quote. Oh, thanks. That clears it up. Now to the LA Harbor. Major characters introduced. Detective Nordberg, played by O.J. Simpson. More on this milquetoast, uncontroversial person in a moment. Vincent Ludwig, played by Ricardo Montalban. Perhaps best known for playing Mr. Rourke from 1977 to 84 on the TV series Fantasy Island. My research indicates he was in demand to play Mr. Ludwig based upon his role as, what was it? God! Fear not, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan is one of my all-timers. And it also bears more than a slight resemblance to the name I gave my tutoring business, The Math of John. John! I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Time for me to be petty. Memories of O.J. Simpson vary widely before and after June of 1994. This may be hard for the youngsters to believe, but Orenthal James O.J. the Juice Simpson was fairly beloved at one point in time. The legendary USC and Buffalo Bills running back parlayed his fame into additional lucrative roles in the public eye, including as a broadcaster on Monday Night Football, a pitchman in TV commercials such as the iconic Hertz Rent-A-Car ad, and of course acting in roles such as Detective Nordberg. In my opinion, he did a good job in his comedy scenes, but few knew the troubles mostly hidden from public view. Fast forward to June 17, 1994, the surreal day that included a split screen of the Ford Bronco chase sharing the broadcast with Game 5 of the 1994 NBA Finals, which saw my New York Knicks go up 3-2 on the eventual champion, Houston Rockets. Going down to Houston with a 3-2 lead, that's really good, right? There's a really good chance Patrick gets his first ring, right? Right? Oh, I'm not still bitter after all this time. No, sir. Time to choose my room with a view. Mr. Simpson as Detective Nordberg is actually the centerpiece of my Reserve Only 1 Minute award. I broke down this 60-second scene into 11 parts, and here are the details. Anatomy of an Awesome Minute, 6:24 to 7:24. The entire part 1 is as follows. Nordberg kicks through the door, his foot gets stuck, and the 7 men on the other side appear startled. However, I made the choice to begin the room minute after this, with Nordberg's foot already through the door and his hand trying to work the doorknob. This bought me a crucial bit of time at the end of the minute, as I'll explain shortly. 2. As Nordberg struggles to extricate himself and get in, the 7 men have plenty of time to make sure their guns are ready to fire, some even checking their bullets. 3. Nordberg gets in, shows his gun and badge, and says, "Police, throw down your guns." 4. One man does comply and drops his gun, and the other 6 give him great, "Really?" looks. 5. The temporarily law-abiding man starts to pick up his gun from the floor when the door opens. Vincent Ludwig enters the room amid appropriately ominous lighting, picks up and returns the gun, looks at Nordberg and says, "Kill him," then turns back and leaves the room. 6. All 7 fire their guns at Nordberg, who stumbles backward and bumps his head. 7. He then reels and burns his left hand on a wood-burning stove. 8. He then leans onto a white door with a wet paint sign and says, "Oh no," as he surveys the damage to the left side of his sailor's pea coat. 9. He then stumbles forward into a windowsill and gets his right hand crushed by a falling window. 10. He then stumbles forward, face first, into a wedding cake. And 11. The entire part 11 is as follows. Nordberg stumbles with cake-obstructed vision and gets his leg caught in a bear trap, screams in great anguish, hops over to the opening, and falls overboard. However, I made the choice to cut it as Nordberg begins to hop toward the opening in favor of the 7 men in part 1 taking their sweet time preparing to shoot Nordberg. And that, dear friends, is my room with a view. The next scene is Los Angeles International Airport, LAX, and then Ed and Frank driving. Major characters introduced. Ed Hocken, played by George Kennedy. He won an Oscar for his role as Paul Newman's fellow inmate and escapee in 1967's Cool Hand Luke, so we can safely say he has acting range. He is also said to have shown a real emotion, anger, when he was not included in the cast of Airplane after having appeared in all 4 serious airport disaster movies. Cameo: Weird Al Yankovic as himself. Mr. Yankovic made a nice name for himself primarily as the king of song parodies, so appearing in this parody of detective movies seems like a natural choice. References I still make to this day. When Frank and Ed were driving from LAX to the hospital, Frank saw the anatomically suggestive structure on the side of the highway and remarked, "Something always reminds me of her," referring to his ex, Victoria. I recently saw a similar structure, but yellow, when driving from New Jersey to Pennsylvania, so I took a picture and posted it to Facebook with the caption, "No matter where my travels take me, something always reminds me of Marge Simpson." The first of 2 hospital scenes, major characters introduced. Susan Bobian as Mrs. Wilma Nordberg. I was going to focus on the interesting fact that she later appeared as a juror at O.J. Simpson's murder trial in season 1 of American Crime Story, but instead I wanted to make clear my belief that her work with viscous, fake mucus is incredibly underrated. Head scratchers. After looking at Nordberg's photo of the I Love You, Ed declares the boat to be out of Caracas and a Panamanian ship. First of all, in looking at the photo, I could see no reference to country of origin, and even if it did say Caracas, I would think that describes a Venezuelan ship. But that's just me. References I still make to this day. Frank. "Wilma, I promise you, whatever scum did this, no one on this force will rest for 1 minute until he's behind bars. Now let's grab a bite to eat." Whenever I'm faced with a semi-serious task, I often make some comment about how crucial it is to address the situation in a timely manner, and then immediately follow it up with a suggestion to do something frivolous. The mayor's press conference. Major characters introduced. Mayor Barkley, played by Nancy Marchand. Before this role, I remembered Nancy Marchand from the 1977 to 82 TV series Lou Grant, a drama which was somehow a spin-off of the classic comedy TV series The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which aired from 1970 to 1977. But all her other credits take a back seat in comparison to her portrayal of Tony Soprano's mother, Livia, in season 1 of The Sopranos, until the time of her death in 2000. Scene at the docks, the harbor area. References I still make to this day. Please disperse. There's nothing for you to see here. Keep moving. This is a policeman with a megaphone standing right in front of two people, and the only two that he is addressing with the megaphone. This is the first of two variations on the Please Disperse theme. The second will be noted soon as well. What a comedy classic that not only has Please Disperse, but you would have to say, which one? Ludwig Office, first of three, then driving. Major characters introduced. Jane Spencer, played by Priscilla Presley. Elvis Presley's widow made a name for herself as an actress in comedic and dramatic roles, and historians will have to decide if first choice Bo Derek would have been better in the role of Jane, having shown some comedic ability later in 1995's Tommy Boy. Dominique, played by Charlotte Zucker. The mother of David and Jerry Zucker does an excellent job as secretary to Vincent Ludwig, especially in a subsequent scene in the same location. The Police Squad Lab, major characters introduced. Al, played by Tiny Ron. At 7 feet tall, this gentleman was only 3 inches taller than me, yet they made him seem so much taller than the 6'1" Leslie Nielsen. Ted Olson, played by Ed Williams. Ted's character is a tribute to Q from the James Bond movies. References I still make to this day. Frank, there's something on the side of your mouth, Al. No, the other side. A super cool friend and I will replicate this interaction, ideally with at least half a banana or something equally substantial. Hospital, then the chase, then the fiery spectacle. Cameo, driving instructor played by John Houseman. John Houseman, to the older folks among us, is known as a professor in a movie and then a television series called The Paper Chase. And Mr. Houseman also won an Oscar for his portrayal in the movie itself, which I believe was released in 1973. References I still make to this day. All right, move on. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see here. Please. The first Please Disperse sight gag down at the docks involved a policeman with a megaphone instructing two people right in front of him. This one involves Frank Drebin severely underplaying the spectacle behind him, the result of the usual, it's just, we call that Tuesday, the hypnotized doctor crashing his stolen car into a gas tanker, then colliding with a large mobile rocket, and finally riding that rocket into a fireworks factory. The usual. I also wanted to mention that the older among us would probably remember John Houseman's iconic Smith Barney commercial as well, probably in the late 70s, early 80s. Frank's apartment, one of two. References I still make to this day. Jane, I was young, I needed the work. I usually say, I was young, I needed the money, but the idea is the same. Time for me to be petty. Frank has a tearaway suit. Jane, I want you to know I practice safe sex. Frank, so do I. Frank and Jane are wearing full body condoms in an exaggerated response to a very real health crisis. 1988 was a time when being diagnosed HIV positive could still very well result in loss of life. Unlike today, when thankfully the condition can often be managed with a combination of medications. The date montage, beach, park, tattoos, rodeo, ship ride, movie, etc. Time for me to be petty. MTV-style titles appeared at the beginning and end of music videos and contained 4 lines featuring the artist's name, song title, album title, and record company name, which is why we got to see Herman's Hermits, I'm Into Something Good, the Naked Gun soundtrack, Wheelo Records, Inc. Anyone who was around at the time and watched any MTV, immediately understood this reference. To the mayor's office. Time for a photo op. Frank. Yes, well, when I see 5 weirdos dressed in togas stabbing a guy in the middle of the park in full view of 100 people, I shoot the bastards. That's my policy. The mayor. That was a Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar, you moron. This was a send-up of an exchange between Detective Callahan and the mayor in 1971's Dirty Harry, but to quote it here verbatim would offend my delicate sensibilities. The Queen's reception at the Ambassador Hotel. Major characters introduced. Queen Elizabeth II, played by Jeanette Charles. Her close resemblance to the actual Queen resulted in more than half a dozen roles starting in 1976. I'll bet that outside the Queen's own family, no one wished the royal leader great health and longevity more than Miss Charles. References I still make to this day. Ludwig. Drippin'. Jane. Frank. Frank. You're both right. I've lost count the number of times I said, you're both right, when greeted with something like, hi, Dad, and hi, John, at about the same time. So many times over so many years, and yet it's never not funny. Schnooky Lumps. This pet name never disappoints. Time for me to be petty. The Queen's reception took place at the Ambassador Hotel, the site of the assassination of Senator and Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy on June 5, 1968, less than 5 years after the assassination of his brother, President John F. Kennedy. The RFK assassination occurred 4 days before yours truly was born, but I imagine this fact is only interesting to maybe half the people interested in the Kennedys, at most. The hotel operated for approximately 20 more years before being closed to guests in 1989, remaining dormant for many years that included an attempt to preserve it as a historic site, and it was ultimately demolished in 2005 and 6. Ed is seen suggesting strategic locations to officers Matthews and Adcock at the Queen's reception. I have to think this is a reference to Eddie Matthews and Joe Adcock, Milwaukee Braves teammates for about a decade starting in the early 50s. The baseball stadium. Major characters introduced. Jay Johnstone playing himself. A legendary baseball playing prankster, he once substituted apple juice for his urine sample. When the nurse commented on its strange appearance, he took it back from her, announced he was going to run it through again to see if its appearance improves, and then chugged the liquid in front of the stunned healthcare provider. Now that's a man after my own bladder. Reggie Jackson, playing himself. Reggie was often controversial during his playing career, but he seemed to come through in the clutch just as often, and was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1993. Although the stadium is portrayed as belonging to the Angels in the movie, it is actually Dodger Stadium. Reggie must have felt especially nostalgic about that location, given that his Yankees won the World Series against the Dodgers in 1977 and 1978. References I still make to this day. After Vincent Ludwig fell out of the stadium to the street, was run over by a steamroller, then trampled by a marching band, Ed said, "My father went the same way." Over the decades, when someone is reported to have died in a very strange way, often while winning or placing for a Darwin Award, I will dust off this gem. Frank. It's a topsy-turvy world, Jane, and maybe the problems of 2 people don't amount to a hill of beans, but this is our hill, and these are our beans. I have dramatically uttered these words many times over the years, just because. Head scratchers. Number 30 for the Angels hits a grand slam, and we see 4 base runners running to second. So there were 3 runners on first base when the grand salami was hit? I finally found someone I can love. Good, clean love, without utensils. I have a pretty good sense of humor, but that one's kind of beyond me. Maybe it's just bizarre for bizarre's sake. If so, I accept it. But I'd love to know if anyone out there knows what they're aiming at with that one. And the last one, the mayor says, "But don't thank me. There's someone here who wants to thank you." That maybe that makes sense. It's kind of borderline for me, but at best, I find it kind of a sloppy writing there. But maybe it's just me. It might be fine. Time for a photo op. Dick Vitale, Dick Enberg, Jim Palmer, Mel Allen, Kurt Gowdy, Tim McCarver, and which one of these just doesn't belong here? Dr. Joyce Brothers comprised a then ridiculous 7-person broadcast team at the baseball game. In real life, just this month, CBS Sports announced that a 7-person team would be in studio for NFL Today broadcasts, Sundays at noon. The outfielder's head pops off and over the center field wall, and Mel Allen utters his signature, "How about that?" as a horrified Dick Enberg looks on. Absolutely hilarious on its own, but I found information at www.mlb.com as to the inspiration. On the list of most beloved figures in Padres history, Jerry Coleman ranks near the top. Along with Tony Gwynn and Trevor Hoffman, the legendary broadcaster is one of 3 people immortalized with statues at Petco Park. He was revered for his down-to-earth demeanor, his excitable personality, and an occasional malaprop, too. Coleman's most notable mishap on the mic came during a late 70s call in which Coleman mistakenly implied a headless Dave Winfield. Quote, "Winfield goes back to the wall," Coleman began. "He hits his head on the wall and it rolls off. It's rolling all the way back to second base. This is a terrible thing for the Padres." And that's today's running through the scenes. Now we proceed to the final cut. It's the final cut time. LAX, then driving. Frank. "And you came down here to get the hot story, didn't you? Pictures of me to sell your lousy newspapers. Sure, you think I'm a big hero, the man of the hour. Well, do any of you understand how a man can hurt inside?" Ed. "Frank, they're not here for you. Weird Al Yankovic is on the plane." 2. Ed. "Not much, just that he's an Olympic gymnast and it's the best sex she's ever had." 3. Ed. "Doctors say he's got a 50-50 chance of living, though there's only a 10% chance of that." Hospital scene 1 of 2. The doctor. "Mrs. Nordberg, I think we can save your husband's arm. Where would you like it sent?" 2. Frank. "I love you too, Nordberg." 3. Wilma. "Who would do such a thing?" Ed. "Well, it's hard to tell." Frank. "Could be a roving gang of thugs, a blackmailer, an angry husband, a gay lover." 4. "That's no way for a man to die." Frank. "Yeah, you're right, Ed. A parachute not opening, that's a way to die. Getting caught in the gears of a combine, having your nuts bit off by a Laplander, that's the way I want to go." And let's stop to acknowledge a great cinematic moment involving viscous mucus. Thank you. 5. Ed. "Just think positive. Never let a doubt enter your mind." Frank. "He's right, Wilma, but I wouldn't wait until the last minute to fill out those organ donor cards." 6. Ed. "Wilma, as soon as Nordberg is better, he's welcome back at police squad." Frank. "Unless he's a drooling vegetable, but I think that's only common sense." 7. Ed. "Frank, when Nordberg said 'I love you,' he was telling you the name of the ship." Frank. "I realize that now." Mayor's press conference. Frank. Let's also take a moment to acknowledge Frank's disgusting snort, which could easily get lost among the lower order bodily functions. Something like, I can't even do it justice. Frank. Protecting the safety of the Queen is a task that's gladly accepted by Police Squad. For no matter how silly the idea of having a queen might be to us, as Americans we must be gracious and considerate hosts. And then during Frank's marathon urination, during which he still is wearing the active microphone, whoops! Uh-oh! Can only imagine what's going on then. To the Docks Harbor area. Number 1, Ed. You want to take a dinghy? Frank. No, I took care of that at the press conference. Number 2, Nordberg's floating chalk outline. 3, the $20 going back and forth with the dock foreman. Drebin ends up making $20 to $40, depending on whether or not the foreman pays the $20 he borrowed from Frank Drebin. I'm going to say Drebin ended up making $20. First scene in Ludwig's office. Ludwig. Lieutenant? Frank. The feeling is mutual. Cuban? Frank. No, Dutch-Irish. My father was from Wales. Frank again. As soon as he regains consciousness, we'll see if he can still play the guitar. 4. Frank. Nice beaver. Jane. Thank you, I just had it stuffed. 5. Frank. How about dinner? I know this little out-of-the-way place that serves great Viking food. Jane. I'm afraid I'm going to have to get my rest this evening, tomorrow being Arbor Day and all. Frank. Oh, of course. Perhaps some other time. Jane. How about a rain check? Frank. Well, let's just stick to dinner. And number 6, one of those quick sight gags. The police station sign says, quote, the police station. Police Squad Lab. Frank with his head down on a microscope. I can't see anything. Ed. Use your open eye, Frank. Ludwig's office. The second of 3 times we see that as a location. The mom of Naked Gun Riders and siblings, David and Jerry, did a great job playing Vincent Ludwig's secretary Dominique. While under a hypnotic spell, she repeatedly pulls the trigger on an empty gun while aiming it at the terror broker we first saw in Beirut. In doing so, this impressive Mother Zucker virtually guaranteed a pap schmear poop smear. I must kill pap schmear. The hospital, then the chase, then the fiery spectacle. Number 1, the dangerous pillow that the doctor throws towards Frank Drebin, and he then exaggeratedly holds it against his face and is in very temporary danger. Number 2, the driving instructor. It's okay. Normally you would not be going 65 down the wrong way of a one-way street. All right, Stephanie, gently extend your arm. Extend your middle finger. Very good. Well done. Frank's thinking walk with a voiceover. He was asking himself a lot of questions. Saw him walking through LA, including playing hopscotch, and at the very end looking around with some previously unheard wildlife noises, and he kind of nervously asks himself, and where the hell was I? Frank's apartment, 1 of 2. Number 1, I thought there was a pretty impressive actor-stuntman transition. A lot of flips happening, and the stuntman would kind of fly and end up behind a bed. Drebin would pop right up. I think that was an above-average kind of transition. And I think we've all seen awful ones, so when we see one that's pretty good, it kind of stands out. 2, Frank slips into something more comfortable, a more formal suit. 3, Frank to Jane. Jane has Frank's finger in her mouth. I've got 9 more. Jane, this is number 4. This world is such a violent place. Frank, if it wasn't, I'd be out of a job. Be back on the circuit riding motocross. But I'd give it all up tomorrow to live in a world without crime. 5. Frank, I've been hurt before. I'd known her for years. We used to go to all the police functions together. Oh, how I loved her, but she had her music. I think she had her music. She hung out with the Chicago Male Chorus and Symphony. I don't recall her playing an instrument or being able to carry a tune, yet she was on the road 300 days out of the year. In fact, I bought her a harp for Christmas. She asked me what it was. 6. It's the same old story. Boy finds girl, boy loses girl, girl finds boy, boy forgets girl, boy remembers girl, girl dies in a tragic blimp accident over the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day. The date montage, beach park, tattoos, rodeo, ship ride, movie, etc. We see Frank and Jane exiting Platoon, doubled over in laughter. 2. Jane. I had a wonderful day, Frank. I can't believe we just met yesterday. 3. Jane. Can I interest you in a nightcap? Frank. No, thank you. I don't wear them. Street outside Ludwig Towers. 1. Frank. You take a chance getting up in the morning, crossing the street, or sticking your face in a fan. And 2. The incredible sight gag of a humongous pile of pistachios right outside of Frank Drebin's passenger side window. We all know how quickly they can accumulate, but this incredible pile was way too much to even allow Drebin to easily open his door. Ludwig's office, the 3rd time out of 3. Frank reaches into a desk drawer of Vincent Ludwig, picks something up, reveals it to be bingo, holds up a bingo card. Mayor's office. The mayor's list of charges against Frank Drebin in conjunction with his breaking into Vincent Ludwig's office included one I don't believe I've heard before: sexual assault with a concrete dildo. Okay, I've heard it before, but the charge was not only dismissed, it was expunged, so drop it. Frank's apartment, the 2nd time. 1. Frank's gun holster is like a bra. 2. Milk pours like cottage cheese. 3. Jane. Wong Woos, they back in business? I thought they closed down 3 years ago. Frank. Well, gee, has it been that long? And 4. Something's moving on top of the freezer behind Frank Drebin's confused face. The 7th Street Stockyards. Frank, once one of Ludwig's henchmen, starts firing his gun at Frank. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Don't fire the gun while you're talking. Queen's Reception, Ambassador Hotel. 1. Ed's gun and wallet are removed from Ed's suit jacket by Frank, who believes he is frisking a gentleman at the reception. Frank. Look, Ed, he's got a picture of your wife. Ed. Ethel! Punches the man. Frank. All right, anyone else here seeing his wife? 2. Frank. By the way, I faked every orgasm. At Police Squad. Ed. What is journalism coming to? You're laying on top of the Queen with her legs wrapped around you, and they call that news. Baseball stadium. In order to avoid scheduling conflicts with Major League Baseball games, all the scenes at Dodger Stadium were shot first. After production at the stadium wrapped and the crew turned their attention to non-baseball matters, producers were shocked to learn that Leslie Nielsen subsequently grew a full 3 inches, creating a serious continuity issue for... Wait, sorry. That's what happened to Anthony Michael Hall during the filming of National Lampoon's Vacation. My apologies for the oversight. But the filming first at Dodger Stadium is true. 2, the dirtbag squatting in the Queens section at the stadium is awesome. 3, the entire national anthem with Drebin as Enrico Palazzo. When you see Palazzo being given credit for the anthem, that also includes Drebin not knowing the words and saying things like "bunch of bombs in the air." Wonderful. 4, Dick Enberg. While the fans are awaiting the first pitch, they're being entertained by the stadium's angel vision, showing some of those unusual moments in baseball over the years. Shortstop getting hit by a car, runner going to second base and then being mauled by a tiger. You should have stayed on first. You probably saw the tiger before we did, at least. And the scratch and spit montage. Wives spit too, but of course they don't scratch. That would be uncouth. 4, Drebin gets caught up in his umpire power, calls the third strike before the ball even crosses the plate. The song "I Love L.A." integrates well with the Frank frisks all the players montage. The reconciliation of traditionally antagonistic groups after everyone views Frank and Jane's happy resolution on the stadium's Angel Vision screen is great, including a large dog and a mailman. Jane: "Oh, Frank, everyone should have a friend like you." This final line, which coincides with a strong pat on the back from Frank to Nordberg, causing Nordberg to descend in his wheelchair down the stadium steps, crash at the wall, and go flying high in the air, is a great final sight gag before we go to the credits. And in the closing credits, if you wait for them, take a look, and with a movie like this, why would you leave, right? There are credits for a man and woman deleted from the fireworks scene, and then assistant to Mr. Weiss. Mr. Weiss is the producer and second unit crew director, followed by secretary to Mr. Weiss, Mr. Weiss's wardrobe, and finally Mr. Weiss's divorce attorney. And later on, very helpful public service announcement. In case of tornado, southwest corner of basement. Jesse Ventura, he of the usual career progression from wrestler to actor to governor, has an uncredited role as baseball announcer. I would love to hear that his business card reads, Governor Jesse the Body Ventura. Now we turn to thoughts on the opening and closing of the movie, the soundtrack, and items in the news. Regarding the opening, you can't do it much better than Frank kicking some butt in Beirut, then the police car's point of view, driving through some zany locations as the credits appear, then transitioning to Nordberg at the LA Harbor, which, as you'll recall, was named my room with a view because it contained the one continuous minute I would take from this movie and keep forever. Regarding the closing, the scene with a recuperating Nordberg announcing his impending return to Police Squad, of course delayed by Frank's over-exuberant pat on the back, leads nicely to the closing credits. But it doesn't even end there, as sharp-eyed credit watchers are rewarded for their loyalty. And the soundtrack, while not overflowing with songs, contains some classics like the Star-Spangled Banner, and a couple of contemporary songs that meet the moments, namely Herman's Hermits' I'm Into Something Good, to accompany the I Can't Believe We Just Met Yesterday montage, and Randy Newman's I Love L.A., paired well with Frank's attempts to frisk all the players before the seventh inning stretch. Couple of news items to close out this analysis of The Naked Gun. 1. 2023 marks 35 years since the release of The Naked Gun, and there appears to be a 35th anniversary edition in the works. However, I have not seen any details on the special features that will be included, which is a pretty big data point for those deciding if they will buy it. I, for one, will wait to see what's included, and if there's a lot of deleted scenes or commentary, anything that I haven't seen before, I would put myself among those pretty excited about buying it. And number 2, There appears to be a Naked Gun reboot in the works, and I was very surprised to see who is likely to play Frank Drebin. Timothy Chalamet. Now that, my friends, is a name I just made up for funsies. Forgive me. The real Frank Drebin is said to be Liam Neeson, which is a doubly cool coincidence. 1, they can keep costs down by reusing any monogrammed items once used by Leslie Nielsen. And 2, Liam Neeson is the star of the next Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie episode when I will be analyzing 2008's Taken. I will also share my thoughts on an unfortunate topic that seems to be trending on social media regarding Mr. Neeson. Okay, that's a wrap on my analysis of The Naked Gun. If you're still awake and listening, I would really appreciate you sending any comments or suggestions to me at shouldersandwich@gmail.com. My goal is to make Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie as entertaining as possible, and your valuable input would be a great help. Okay, now to my answers for my own narcissistic Kevin Bacon movie game. 1. Get from above the rim to the Naked Gun in as few moves as possible. 1994's Above the Rim features Michael Rispoli, who appeared in 2006's Invincible with Mark Wahlberg, who appeared in 2014's The Gambler with George Kennedy, who of course appeared as Captain Ed Hockin in 1988's The Naked Gun. This required 3 actors, so it would be considered solved in 3 moves. And I believe Michael Rispoli might be better known to folks out there as Jackie Aprile, who succumbed to cancer in the first season of The Sopranos. Number 2, get from Worth to the Naked Gun in as few moves as possible. 2020's Worth features Michael Keaton, who appeared in 2010's The Other Guys with Mark Wahlberg, who appeared in 2014's The Gambler with George Kennedy, who appeared in The Naked Gun. This required 3 actors, so it would be considered solved in 3 moves. Okay, now to my answers to the non-narcissistic version of the Kevin Bacon movie game. As promised, here's a reminder. If you want more time, pause now and come back. But really, come back. Please. Okay, number 1. Easy. Get from Marissa Tomei to Robert De Niro in as few moves as possible. Marissa Tomei appeared in 1992's My Cousin Vinny with Joe Pesci, who appeared in 1990's Goodfellas with Robert De Niro. This required 2 movies, so it would be considered solved in 2 moves. Medium. Get from Paul Newman to Diane Lane in as few moves as possible. My answer is that Paul Newman appeared in 1986's The Color of Money with Tom Cruise, who appeared in 1983's The Outsiders with Diane Lane. This required 2 movies, so it would be considered solved in 2 moves. Difficult. Get from Elliot Gould to Sylvester Stallone in as few moves as possible. Elliot Gould appeared in 1970's MASH with Sally Kellerman, who appeared in 1986's Back to School with Burt Young, who appeared in 1976's Rocky with Sylvester Stallone. This required 3 movies, so it would be considered solved in 3 moves. Thank you so much for listening and or watching, and I hope you enjoyed this labor of love half as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Once again, please feel free to reach out to me at shouldersandwich@gmail.com. Any comments, suggestions, or corrections that involve The Naked Gun may be featured in the next episode. Speaking of the next episode, the subject will be 2008's Taken, in case you need a cinematic refresher. Thanks again. See you next time here at Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie.
This has been Shoulder Sandwich and a Movie.
Now it's time for the first entry in the Awkward Band Pics tournament. I have been mining the genre of hair metal to collect many of these photos, and I would imagine there will be entries from other musical genres before it's all said and done. But for now, my IROC Z with T-tops is parked in the hair metal lot. It's the gift that keeps on giving, especially for bands from the 80s. As I mentioned in the preview, the first entry, and I guess we'll pop it up maybe over here, is from the band Cinderella. Isn't that something? And for the sake of fairness, I'm sure there are some mullet mustache pictures of me I'd pay a decent amount to have shredded, burned, with the detritus buried deep within the earth. Please note that I am a fan of the band, and I have seen them live in concert at least twice. I saw them open for David Lee Roth, probably at the Nassau Coliseum in New York, I think around 1986, and much later opening for Poison at the PNC Bank Arts Center in New Jersey. The clearest memory I have of that Arts Center show was how cool they looked and sounded transitioning from the solo back to the lyrics in their hit Coming Home. I took a walk down a road, it's a road I was meant to stay. I see the fire in your eyes, but... Sorry, I got carried away again. It's got to be the microphone. Back to the tournament. When we get a total of 8 or 16 awkward band photos, we're going to do a college basketball style tournament to determine the champion? Unlike that annual event, there aren't really any seedings at play here because, think about it, I don't really have like regular season hair related records or anything like that for these bands. Their conference hair tournament standings and nothing. Maybe amounts of Aquanet hairspray purchased, something like that we can use. But seriously, the matchups are going to be fairly random, and we'll have them compete and cut the field in half each week until we crown the ultimate winner. And that's today's Awkward Band Pics segment. Hey there, I'm here with the product review mentioned in the preview, and I'm reviewing products I personally used and rating them on a scale of awesome, very good, good, decent, or nope. Today's is Fresh Breath zero-calorie sugar-free chewing gum by TheraBreath. This, as you can see, is a larger multi-pack because when it comes to needing a little help with one's breath, I'm pretty sure I'm patient zero. I actually use the Amazon subscribe and save option to have these babies automatically delivered on a regular schedule. I've had good feedback about the gum from those closest to me, and I want to talk a little bit about the shape of the product as well as the ingredients. Not sure if you can see the concentric circles, like a blister pack here, on the surface of the gum. And I might post a close-up picture to show it more clearly. But when you rub it against your tongue, it creates friction that is like brushing your tongue without a toothbrush. And after you have finished with the friction, you chew on the gum to release the special ingredients. One ingredient in particular that caught my eye is turmeric, which I take as a supplement, and it's thought to help with inflammation in the body. I'm not exactly sure what it's doing here in this gum, but if I know my turmeric, it wouldn't be here without a darn good reason. In doing a little research, I learned that Dr. Harold Katz developed the TheraBreath line of products in response to his daughter's chronic bad breath. Thanks, smelly kid. According to the back of the package, until now, the only way to stop bad breath was to mask odor. TheraBreath gum is different. It does not mask odors with strong scents or flavorings. It fights bad breath odors by releasing antibacterial compounds and other breath-freshening agents. Continuing on, Dr. Katz is clearly starting to get cocky when he writes, "Our gum is even effective on odors caused by onions, garlic, coffee, and smoking. It will leave your whole mouth refreshed and your confidence restored." And then he does the right thing and backs up his big tough guy words by mentioning the money back guarantee if we're not 100% satisfied. So I'll cut him some slack for putting his money where his presumably extremely clean mouth is. So when it comes to my rating, you might think I would follow all this unbridled positivity with an awesome rating. Not so fast, presumptuous Priscilla. I do wish one feature was a bit improved, and it's a wish I also have for many other gums, that the flavor would last a bit longer once you start chewing the gum. That's what's keeping me from giving it an awesome rating, but I'm very comfortable declaring that Fresh Breath zero-calorie sugar-free chewing gum by TheraBreath is very good. And since I did rate it very good, I will include a link to it on my website at www.internetreststop.com/shoulder-sandwich/products. And that's today's product review. Last but not least, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my desert island playlist. You know the deal. You're informed that you're going to end up on a desert island and you have time to pack, and yet you don't change your travel plans in spite of a clear warning that the journey will end horribly. When I put it that way, it really sounds kind of moronic, yet we press on. I'm not even going to get into the extremely low probability of having a supplemental power source to play music or movies on a desert island, because I just end up scrapping this stupid exercise. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative, Johnny boy. Accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. Okay, for whatever reason, wherever I am, I can only listen to a certain number of songs in perpetuity. In response, I have made a serious effort to create a 10-song playlist that would from this point forward serve as my entire music collection. And as you'll see, as my playlist is revealed over time, there's a lot of strategy involved. My first pick is a cover of the Kiss song Strutter by the band Extreme. This particular song is taken off of a 1994 recording of Kiss cover songs called Kiss My Ass, Classic Kiss Regrooved. The great thing about this song is that it's enjoyable on its own, but it also refers to, I believe, 3 other Kiss songs during Strutter. So my thinking is that I'm getting at least a portion of 4 Kiss songs by choosing just one. It's an interesting take on Strutter by Extreme, and it refers to God of Thunder with a riff. Dun, 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 dun. There's a brief chorus of Shout It Out Loud, which you may also recognize as the opening theme of the Kiss pinball machine, or not. And at the very end of the song, I believe it's Gary Cherone, who spent some time in Van Halen, which I wonder if he regrets. But regardless, you're not going to turn down a call from the Van Halen boys. And Gary says, "Wait, I got the end, and then mouths the opening riff to Love Gun. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. So look at Big Brain Johnny, well, big-headed at least, making a considered, strategic decision in the face of impending scarcity. And that's today's Desert Island playlist. So that concludes the very first Shoulder Sandwich broadcast for Monday, September 25th, 2023. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. Until next time, remember, the most frustrating thing about an unfinished sentence is that